It's just not going to work if we have that sound. Sorry about that. We're having a few technical difficulties. But Jack Jose, who's been a leader here at Christ Church Cathedral on initiatives to diminish gun violence and work to eliminate it, especially among youth, is going to lead off today. He's setting up his own, or has set up his own nonprofit to do this work as well. He has put together a panel of excellent people who are already at work on these initiatives. And we've got the vice mayor with us, who brought up the other day an outside initiative that we need to be looking at. So let me bring Jack up right away.
Thank you, Bill. I want to say thank you guys for coming and being interested and involved in this important issue. I want to quickly correct one thing factually. I did not start this nonprofit. There was a group of us, and Carole, I think, is prepared to talk a little bit about the history of the CPBN and how that nonprofit came to be. I did some paperwork, right? But it's other folks who are doing the heavy lifting and the actual work that's happening in the community. But I have been involved here at Christ Church Cathedral for about 6 years now in gun violence prevention. And what that has looked like is here at the cathedral several years ago, prior to the county's pronouncement that gun violence was a health hazard and or a crisis, an emergency. The cathedral had recognized that, and we drew together using our influence. We drew together a panel of experts from around the country, and we listened to what they had to say about gun violence prevention. We saw data, we saw information. And this group that called itself a task force then proposed forming a second group that would do the work moving forward. That work, called the working group, moved forward, and Judith Robinson was the chair of that group. Judith reached out to me and asked if I would help. I agreed to be that assistance, and together we took some resources that the church made available to us. At the time, they gave us about $30,000 a year to go out and implement these evidence-based solutions that we'd heard about. Judith and I had an important understanding, though, at that moment. You can see this. I'm a white man, and Judith is a white woman. She lived in the suburbs of Cincinnati, and I live in Westwood. We were unwilling to step into a community where gun violence was happening and tell folks in any community, here is the research-backed way that you should handle what's going on in your neighborhood. Because while some people speak of neighborhoods being places where you can't drive through there and you don't go to that place, we never lost sight of the fact that, in fact, these are neighborhoods where people live. And the people who live in these neighborhoods don't encourage or want this violence to happen. And the people in our neighborhoods know best how to solve the problem. So we became committed to working with groups that were solving the problem in the communities and giving them the resources they needed to address that. I see you standing to my right, like there's a technical, okay, all right. I just didn't want to stand in the way of technology. So what we did that I think was very important is that we formed partnerships and we met with people around the city, and we just went where we were told we were most needed. Where we ended up concentrating a lot of our time was in Price Hill. What Price Hill had going on at that time were multiple groups in the community, including Santa Maria and others, that were doing similar work, but just needed some help threading their work together. And we came in and we offered time and resources, often some just writing checks sometimes, from Christ Church Cathedral to say, keep doing the work that you're doing because you understand what's happening in your neighborhood. And it was through this that I came to know Mitch Morris, and we started the what we're preparing for this June, the 3rd annual Cincinnati Gun Violence Prevention Summit. And from there, we met Erica Ford and traveled to New York City and saw how they worked in a community-based way with credible messengers to, in some cases, almost completely eliminate gun violence in certain neighborhoods that had once been considered irredeemable. And always with community-based solutions by empowering the people in that community to do the work that needed to be done, not to dictate what that work looks like. And to also, at the city level, establish someone who responds to the mayor who's in charge of gun violence and who has the authority to empower and fund these neighborhood-based groups. And that's something we've worked to push the city to do as well, because we believe that the answer doesn't lie from someplace out there. There's not a person we can hire into Cincinnati who can come here and understand the lay of the land. Not because Cincinnati isn't like other cities, but Cincinnati is exactly like other cities in that we are unique. We are our own city. We have 52 neighborhoods. Someone can't come here from outside and understand, you know, the vagaries and the differences. We need to recruit resources from inside, give resources to folks in the community to solve this problem here. So I've been proud of the work that we've done at Christ Church Cathedral. I made a list because I think about all the people we work with, and I was afraid I'd forget them. But we've worked closely by attending meetings and funding groups, these following communities. We've been working with the Joe Williams Center in Lower Price Hill. Proud to say that when we started working with that group and other groups, Lower Price Hill was chronically in the top 10% most violent neighborhoods in Cincinnati. It hasn't been in the top 10 list in almost 2 years. Not because of us, we just were at the right place at the right time working with these groups in the community. We're working with the Peace and Hope Lifestyle and Third Presbyterian Church with Rodney Christian and Airea Powell, who you'll hear from in a few minutes, in East Westwood. We're working with Estate Ministries in Avondale and the powerful work that he's done with youth, especially court-involved youth in that community. We're working with Mitch Morris, as I mentioned earlier, with the Kings and Queens program up at Winton Hills and Winton Terrace. And we're working with Unheard Voices. And that's a group in Cincinnati that works with people disabled from gun violence and helps get them into the community to do things like play basketball and just be active in the way that they wish to be. And that gun violence has forever altered their lives. So I'm proud of this work. And when Bill asked me to be here today, and Bill and Ed, I thank you for graciously hosting these forums and inviting us to be here. I had a long list of people I wanted to ask, but I wanted to focus on, I think, the top 2 priorities. One is the CPBN, the Community Peace Builders Network, which is this nonprofit that Bill mentioned that grew out of our travels to New York City. And I've invited Carole Womeldorf here to speak about that. And the other is the just incredible work that's happened, not just in East Westwood, but citywide. And I'm proud to call my friend Airea Powell is here to talk about her work with the Peace and Hope Lifestyle in East Westwood. And hopefully she'll throw in her new election as the president of the East Westwood Improvement Association. And so I did not prepare for who would go first. And so I don't know. Carole, were you ready with your presentation? Or it might be easier technically? Okay, then. I introduce now the estimable Airea Powell from the East Westwood Improvement Association and the Peace and Hope Lifestyle. Anytime.
Where am I? Oh, I'm looking here. Okay. So good afternoon, everybody. So as Jack stated, I am Airea Powell. I'm the new president of the East Westwood Improvement Association. And part of my role in what we have going on now with the Peace and Hope Lifestyle is once we came back from New York City, one of the things that really impressed us while we were there is how all the different community organizations work together. Each community, whether it was the Bronx or Manhattan, or Harlem, they all had their own colors and kind of where. And so when we came back, one thing that Rodney and I talked about is how do we get identified when we're at scenes. A lot of what we do is show up to crime scenes, specifically homicides in our community, or even things where the police are called to kind of de-escalate. So one thing that we did was we wanted to have something that was light and bright so that you could see us at night. So we had the white, and then we thought of the purple, color of royalty, and just something that is calming. So that was what we did. Part of what we thought about with the peace and hope lifestyle is a lot of the reasons for the violence are underlying factors. It's not always necessarily a neighborhood beef, but people are upset, people are living in poverty, kids are hungry, and things like that. So part of our initiative is to basically bring peace and hope to people. A part of what we do is we have a team work program, which allows the kids to get work skills and also pay them. We also hire some of the young adults to work as supervisors to get paid as well. That's one of our biggest and most successful programs, because even if kids don't want to come talk and play at the rec center, they want to come out when it's time to make money, which is one of our ways to really get and talk to them. Something that has come out of that as well is the men's breakfast and the women's breakfast. Sometimes you'll get these boys in a room, they may not feel comfortable expressing themselves because there's girls there, they don't want to say certain things. So the men's breakfast is a bunch of our teens and kid boys and some of the adult men, not only from Third Presbyterian, but also from Knox Presbyterian and Hyde Park, and they come and talk. They also have the women's breakfast, which is now happening. It's consistent. I think the men's breakfast is the second Saturday of each month, and the women's breakfast is the fourth Saturday of each month. Another big part of what we do with the Peace and Hope lifestyle is the career research team. For me, as a kid growing up in East Westwood, exposure was always very important. I was able to get out the community to see different things, and I think that really helped me as an adult in my career. So with our career research team, what we do is we have the kids look up different careers, talk about what they want to do, and we try to get them in those spaces. So a week and a half ago, we took a group of our kids to Channel 5 just to tour the station and talk to some of the reporters, and they got to sit in live on the broadcast. After that, we have our recreation center, which is open 5 to 6 days a week. And in that, we also feed the kids every day after school and on Saturdays around lunchtime. So that's a big draw. We have some kids that literally would come in to eat and leave, but that's our time to talk to them. Y'all give me the pause. Recreation center, which is open 5 to 6 days a week. And in that, we also feed the kids every day after school and on Saturdays around lunchtime. So that's a big draw. We have some kids that literally will come in to eat and leave, but that's our time to talk to them. Y'all give me the pause. Recreation center, which is open 5 to 6 days a week. And in that, we also feed the kids. Sorry. Okay, and then from the recreation center, there's a lot of things that happen in there. We have things like the culture corner where they learn different things about different cultures. And then outside of us feeding them, they have mentoring and tutors come in during the week to help with homework and to do readings. And lastly, we have our community garden. This is where we really get a lot of the children and the elders in our community involved. We have a lot of senior housing on McHenry. I don't know if a lot of people know that, but we try to bring in the seniors to work with the kids to build out those plots in our garden. So it's kind of a collective that we're doing, and we're trying to not just hit one thing, but all of these different collectives of things to try to get people living in peace and give them a little bit of hope on the west side. Good.
What's the source of your funding? Where are you getting the money?
Okay, so a lot of what we do, we get NSP funds, which is only about $7,000 from the city. But then we also, one of our biggest donors is Knox Presbyterian in Hyde Park. We have applied for some grants like our community garden. We get some grants for that, and we apply for other small grants here and there. But between Knox and our NSP funds, that's where we get most of our.
How long your association been in existence?
So the Peace and Hope lifestyle we started last year when we came back, but all of these activities have been going on through our community council, which has been around since the late 80s.
So you're the division of your community council?
Correct, yes.
And what's the age group of your kids?
So we see kids, yeah, everywhere from 5. We've had some people bring in kids smaller than 5, but we try not to let the other kids bring them in. But so we usually see about between 5 and 23 or 24.
Do you solicit the kids in the neighborhood, or do they just come to you?
A little bit of both. So a lot of the kids live in the neighborhood, but then we also get kids that's coming as far as Price Hill and Cheviot, and it's because other kids have told them about us. And we also have a basketball court that's only about 4 years old. So that's a big draw. People just pop in to see what's going on up there.
So do you have any kids between the ages of 12 to 17?
Yeah, our 12 to 17-year-olds are usually the ones who live close to the community. The kids in that age range are the ones who usually, we have some from Aiken, Taft, Data, and West High that's in that age range. Yeah. Any other questions? Mingo, you look like you want to ask me something.
Is there anything showing up in terms of data about gun violence in the neighborhood? Do you
Yeah.
see any sort of impact?
Yeah, so East Westwood years ago, we were in that top 10, and Jack stated as well. But here recently, we have not had hardly any shootings, especially in our hot spots. We did have a homicide, I want to say that was 7 months ago, but prior to that, we had not seen shootings in about 1.5 years in our neighborhood.
Am I able to ask a question?
Okay. So, Tara, I just want to, I don't know if you want to talk about this, but, and I don't know if people here know, and Pastor Mingle was the same thing. So Tara and Pastor Mingle are people who are out on the scene when shootings happen or murders happen. And so I don't know if you want to talk about some of those experiences.
Sure.
Tara, I'm going to just tell 2 quick stories about her. And that's why I was asking you, because I'm talking, I don't know if people can hear us back here in the audience, but, so she is well known in the community all over Cincinnati. And sometimes when there's something about to happen, this is just one example. This is like back in the spring. Someone called her at like 2 in the morning and they said there's about to be a shooting, outside of some club somewhere because like there's an argument and, there were guns. So she, left her house, went out there and talked to the people who were about to shoot, and so in doing that, in de-escalating that situation, and I know Pastor Mingo has done some of this work too, but in de-escalating that situation, it saved lives, no one got shot, it also saved somebody going to prison. So that's really, and these are young people, these were minors. So, well, I personally thought that, wow, that's scary because, it's dangerous, it's dangerous work, but she's out there doing it. And then I think about another incident where there was a domestic violence incident and there was a child involved and there were guns involved. And, Tiara had to come and take that child and care for him. And she kept him for almost 2 weeks, taking care of him. And so I'm just saying the work she does is really phenomenal.
And that was unplanned. Yeah.
I don't think she wants it to happen again.
No, I don't. I think that one of the things that I am proud of is even from this gun violence summit, Christ Cathedral also gave us some funds, which is how we were able to purchase some of our gear for the Peace and Hope lifestyle. Is I think that the support that we have, and I think that what happens in Cincinnati is sometimes there's so many organizations who are doing the real work that they don't have time to be seen. And unfortunately, that causes them to be skipped over on funds. I think, and I've expressed this plenty of times as well, is I think prior to New York, we didn't necessarily understand the importance that politics played with the community-based organizations. When we went to New York City, they really showed that you had to deep dive into the government because the government, unfortunately, the local government could make or break you. And so I think that was a big thing from the trip and really understanding how you have to intertwine and be active in the government. And I think some of the smaller organizations who are really, really doing the work struggle with that because it's almost you have to know somebody to get some money, I never was privy to all of the work that Christ Cathedral did until I met Jack. And, I think that that's a really good thing. And I think those type of introductions and those type of relationships are really what's going to help the city, because like I said, there's a lot of people who are doing the work who will never tell you that they're doing the work, but they also need the help. I'm good to go. All right, Carol, you got it.
We're gonna take this a little bit, tricky and Jack, what do you guys come in? We're gonna do some parallel. We're gonna do it on screen for the Zoom, we're gonna do it on the TV for y'all in the room here. So. Can you unplug that? We're not gonna use this. Yeah. All right. I'm gonna use
You press the button and advance the slide.
exactly. Please, please, please.
I am qualified.
Excellent. You have a vision.
I can press a button. That's all I'm saying. I don't mean to boast, but I can press a button.
All right, so what's here?
Start the slideshow.
There's, you're gonna have to put the chair back here or something.
I was gonna hold it over your head so you could get out first.
That's good. Don't change that one.
We need to plug it in.
Yeah,
I
get it. That's gonna echo if you plug it in. It's not. You don't think so? I promise you.
It's running the line straight from here.
Oh, I see. Okay. Okay, so, yeah, this works. This works. This works. I see. Just. Okay. The next slide. Yeah. All right. Let me just double check here. Oh, okay. Okay. All right. All right. Thank you. I don't think I need this. Okay. Take a deep breath here. Thank you, Tiara. Thank you, Jack. Thank you, Christ Church Cathedral, for hosting us, and Community Matters, Bill. This community violence intervention and prevention, CVI, CVIP. These are new acronyms for the oldest work, maybe the second oldest work. Preachers, coaches, teachers, parents, grandparents have gone out and said, hey, that's not the way to do this. They've been doing that since the beginning of time. Sometimes it's even folks who run a business and they hire somebody that maybe they didn't need because they know that person needs to be in a place where they're needed, and they're going to be doing work and they're going to have a sense of purpose. There's so many different ways that communities do violence intervention and prevention. My name's Carole Womeldorf. I've been working with Jack and Positive Force, Evan Ennis Taste Ministries, Peace and Hope Lifestyle, Save Our Youth, Kings and Queens for about a year now, since we all traveled to New York and got a vision for how community violence intervention and prevention can be done to scale. It's not new work, but it's done in a way, in a community, across communities, in the city, in a way that deals with our reality today. And our reality today is kids have access to guns easier than books they want to read. Maybe not as easy as computer games online, but real easy. They know where they are, they know how to use them, and they're hurting each other. And the work that was been done for millennia isn't enough anymore. As a city, as multiple communities, we all have a part to play in taking this violence intervention and prevention to the next scale. So I'll give you a little bit of background. I'll give you a little bit of possibilities, and I'll really want to hear some conversation afterwards. But I think it helps to give you a little bit of the perspective. So this is Cincinnati, not really what you're used to seeing, perhaps. This is the survey crime report reported by the FBI, Crime Data Explorer. You can go online and pull it up. I just got it this morning to get to 2022. It's a couple years behind, or a year at least behind. You can see how homicides, and this is only homicides, have changed and grown in our city. A little bit of decline, mostly growing. It's really hard to remember, like I was trained as an engineer, kind of analytically, numbers, you know, you just kind of keep going with the numbers, and okay, bigger numbers, smaller numbers, you don't stop. That's not how it is in the community, because it's somebody you know. So when you see this blue line all the way up to here, you say, oh, that's a lot. But then when you remember that may be 95 individuals who are killed that 1 year, and that was during the beginning of COVID 2020. But that's 95 individuals, that's their families, that's the witnesses, that's the people around them, that's even the emergency responders. Every person that comes in touch with that is impacted. We can do better, Cincinnati. We can do better. So I'm a little bit of a data geek. I took the 4 years from 2019 to 2022, and I looked at each month because I wanted to know, how do shootings change in our city? And what you can see is January, February, March, and April. November and December, it's kind of lower. In fact, we're calling that the winter. It averages about 26 shootings, not homicides, shootings. So there's homicides is a shooting that's fatal. Shootings are homicides and shootings that somebody may be injured in. Reported shootings. During the summer, which has been defined by our community shooters as May through October, we're averaging 44 shootings. There's a good jump there. There's a significant jump. There's not a good jump. It's a big jump. And the average number per year is over 400. And remember, each one of those shootings is an individual, is a family, is people around them, first responders. It's even hospital workers who are dealing with things that nobody should have to see and nobody should have to experience. Jack made mention of it. Tierra's lived it. Black communities in Cincinnati are much, much harder hit. These are homicide victims by race and gender. 75% of the homicide victims from 2019 to 2021 were African-American men. 12% were African-American women, and smaller percentages. And now we all have heard, and it's not small news, that the number of shootings in our city with regards to youth is probably no longer, there's another slide that shows it's about 10%. I took it out because it was so out of date from what's happened in 2023. Airea mentioned going to New York City, opened her eyes to how city government plays into this. Homicides cost a lot of money for cities. I don't really like this slide because I don't really want to focus on this slide, because the interactions between the people, the impact of the shootings on the people, to me, is a lot higher. But sometimes people need to see this because they need to remember, in city of Detroit, a homicide costs about $1.7 million. They paid $10,000 to $20,000 to get that number. They did the same in Indianapolis, got a 1.2 million for a homicide. In Louisville, it calculated to 0.9. This is from the website of the National Institute for Criminal Justice Reform. And you can just type in cost of violence and it'll take you there. And it'll give you a full 2-page infographic of exactly how the money is spent in each of those cities. But generally the topics are crime scene, they're the hospital bills, they're the criminal justice, from that, so public defenders, judges, everybody in the courtroom and around it, incarceration, victim support, lost revenue, all of these things add up. One homicide is about $1 million. And that's where they know, they're pretty sure of who the shooter is. one suspect. So ran the numbers for 2023. It's over $250 million of our city's budget and revenue impacted by shooting. We could do better. In 2021, we were 10th worst in the nation. We had a homicide rate of 25.6 per 100,000. So if you do the math on that, and you go back to one of my graphs, you can see our city has about 300,000 people. About 75 people were shot and killed in Cincinnati in 2021. Got another slide. I think it's on the other pitch. Anyway, so Community Peace Builders Network. We talked about it initially. Bishop Ennis Tate. Bishop Ennis Tate is working in Avondale with the Positive Force. He's working with a significant group of young men and a few women who are heavily impacted in living in the world of gun violence. He is finding ways to meet them where they're at. He's finding ways to support them when schools are closed and everybody's on vacation, and these kids oftentimes don't have home resources. Rodney Christian and Airea Powell are working in East Westwood. They're also working in Westwood. They're also working in Village of Roll Hill. They're also working in English Woods. They're also working in North Fairmont. All of these communities, I said Westwood also, they're all of these communities, across these communities, they know people. They're called in by people to support. They're also running an after-school program that isn't just after school. It's also on Saturdays. It's also meeting kids on Sundays in church. It's bringing kids into a life of positive people, of positive messaging, and of hope. And they're doing a beautiful job. And Rodney's been doing it for 30 years or more. And Airea has been grown up in it and is sharing it out to the community again, giving back. Y'all probably know Mitch Morris. And these are not the only people doing this kind of work in Cincinnati. Let me just repeat that, okay? These are the people that currently right now are part of the Community Peace Builders Network. These are some of the folks who went to New York, who saw that larger vision, who have been willing to put up with a whole lot of administrative annoyance and meet Zoom meetings, and have helped us build a resource and a network and an administrative arm, but also hopefully we're building it into a community. And anybody who's in communications and wants to work with us, please reach out. Don't hesitate. And then I'm working kind of operations and data, and Jack is treasurer, and we're building this into something that over time we hope will be citywide. Rodney, Peace and Hope Lifestyle, he's the lead there. East Westwood Recreation Center, East Westwood Community Council, and as Airea mentioned, the Hope Resource Center, Career Center, all the different elements of helping young people feel good about themselves, from exercise to community to church to hope and future, building a future, thinking about their careers, and doing community violence intervention whenever needed. One way you can tell that these folks are doing the work is the kids know who to call in the middle of the night if something's happening. This is not just a 9 to 5 kind of, or a 3 to 6 kind of thing. Mitch has been doing community outreach, violence intervention, again, for decades. Currently, he's located in Winton Terrace, running a very large program after school and helping kids with activities and exposing them to different speakers and knowledge about, bringing in people to talk and offer skills and tutoring. And he's got a good team there working of credible messengers. Again, we're building this workforce to enable folks to be able to do this work for pay. Bishop Ennis Tate, part of Ennis Tate, is lead on Ennis Tate Ministries and Positive Force. And he builds capacity, looking at community outreach, prevention and intervention, engaging with parents, and shared leadership, also as a community leader in Avondale, across the city, and advocating for public policy to reduce gun violence. So we talked about the Gun Violence Prevention Summit in October 22, visit to New York in January. And then we've done a lot of homework learning about Out of the Crossfire, which was an effort that was occurred here in Cincinnati to do hospital violence intervention, where when somebody comes into a hospital and they've been shot and they're still alive, and we're trying to talk them and help them understand the risk that they're under and the danger they're in, and they may know it, but they don't know a way out. And that's the kind of work that folks can do in that hospital setting. We learned about ceasefire and the SERVE program here, Operation Ceasefire SERVE, which was talked about as bringing in gang violence members to talk about what risk they're at, and also looking at law enforcement collaboration. As sometimes is the case, law enforcement has a bigger footprint than communities. And that work lasted for a while. And then when leadership changed, it changed. We've talked with people from Cure Violence, which is a national accreditation organization that teaches violence intervention. We've talked at length with Advanced Peace. And I need to update this. We've also talked with another organization called No More Red Dots. Advanced Peace is out in Richmond, California, taking their model of drastic gun violence reduction in the city of Richmond to other cities across the country. And No More Red Dots is another organization that uses similar approaches, and is located here in Louisville and led by Dr. Eddie Woods. And he was here this weekend for a training. He'll be back in 2 weeks. And we're working to build that network and collaboration between these three fairly separate organizations right now. There's links between leadership, but how folks respond is not as developed. And we've presented to the Public Safety Committee of Cincinnati, the Ohio Senate Finance Committee. We've done one training. We're in the process of doing our second. And we've been doing community outreach meetings also. There's some fun pictures. I like visuals. I know other people probably do. This is Erica Ford in her orange jumpsuit coming here from New York back in October 22. There's Judith, there's Dean Thompson, and Jack, and Mitch, and Pastor Tate, and another fellow from New York City. This is all of us in New York in January of 2023, learning and just really getting an amazing view of what it can be like when the city supports and when people work together and when people have their own identity. Peace is a Lifestyle is Erica Ford's organization that really works in Queens. There are other organizations, North Harlem, South Harlem has one, the Bronx, there's all sorts of different groups that each have their own identity, that have their own connections, but that are also doing the outreach and connecting with each other in positive and empowering ways. This was our presentation, after our presentation to City Council, Public Safety Board, that's Devone Bogan talking about Advanced Peace. And Advanced Peace is a refined version of community violence intervention, focusing on peacemaker fellowships for youth.
Time ran out.
Okay. This is us in finance, and I'll just, this last piece here. Why CPBN still recommends community violence intervention and prevention and Advanced Peace. Small number of actual shooters, outreach, mentoring, even peacemaker fellowships can be powerfully focused on those most involved, evidence-based, data-driven. Advanced Peace has a proven track record, and on our work in CVIP is maturing efforts that can sustain and support something like a mentoring fellowship program like Advanced Peace. Credible, trustworthy messenger outreach identifies and trains, and that's the beginnings of what we're doing. But many of those folks have already been working like Tierra in the community for years, and so building the cohesiveness and collaboration up is really the focus at this point. But we're working toward trauma-informed mentoring, support, guidance, and mental health services, which might even include cognitive behavioral therapy in a street context that enables folks to get something valuable out of it quickly. And the community is closest to its impacts. These are working with the community. They're done by the community through and alongside, and over time, we hope, the Community Peace Builders Network. We encourage you to support credible messenger training and employment, CVI, engagement and education, and we're hoping to build up that backbone support toward a citywide CVI ecosystem. And that is my slides, and I'm going to stop sharing. And I know I don't have a lot of time, but if anybody maybe have time for some questions, or how are we doing it? Sure.
Why don't we open it up for questions from all?
Do we have any on the chat? Yeah, so if you have chat questions, let's see, I probably need to turn the volume up, but that's gonna, anyway. No, don't. This one, I think it'll be okay. No, it won't.
Oh, this
Because
one.
this one, if we turn up this one only,
They can hear, if you get a question from here, they can hear.
but I can't hear anybody on the screen. Okay. Oh, no, there's a lag. This one.